He said, "I do not consent." Seconds later, he was in handcuffs. The courtroom was already tense before the man even spoke. It was a typical weekday morning, routine hearings, minor offenses, the usual flow of cases moving through the system. Lawyers shuffled papers. The judge reviewed files with quiet efficiency. A bailiff stood near the door, arms folded, scanning the room with practiced awareness. Then his case was called. Case number 47, State versus Daniel Harper. A man in his mid-30s stepped forward. He wore a wrinkled button-down shirt, no tie, and carried a stack of papers held together with clips and handwritten notes. His expression wasn't nervous. It wasn't even uncertain. It was confident, almost defiant. He didn't walk like someone unsure of his situation. He walked like someone who believed he had already won. The judge glanced up briefly. "Mr. Harper, please step forward." Daniel didn't move closer. Instead, he placed his papers on the podium and cleared his throat. "For the record," he began, his voice steady but loud enough to shift the room's attention, "I am here under special appearance." A few people in the gallery looked up. One lawyer raised an eyebrow. The judge paused. "Sir, step forward and identify yourself." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I do not consent to these proceedings. I am a sovereign individual, not subject to this court's jurisdiction." There it was. The air in the room subtly changed. The judge leaned back slightly, her expression calm but familiar, like she had heard this before, because she had. "Mr. Harper," she said evenly, "this court recognizes you as the defendant in this case. You are required to respond." Daniel smiled faintly, as if he had expected that answer. "I am not the defendant," he replied. "That name you're using is a legal fiction. I am a living man, not a corporate entity." A quiet murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge folded her hands. "Sir, this is a criminal proceeding. You are charged with driving without a valid license and resisting a lawful stop. How do you plead?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "I do not consent." The judge exhaled slowly. "That is not a plea. You must enter a plea of guilty, not guilty, or no contest." "I reject all contracts with this court," Daniel said, raising his voice slightly. "You have no authority over me." The bailiff shifted his stance. The judge's tone hardened just a fraction. "Mr. Harper, this is your opportunity to participate in your defense. Refusal to do so will not stop the proceedings." Daniel leaned forward, placing both hands on the podium. "This court operates under maritime law," he said, tapping his papers. "I am not engaged in commerce. Therefore, your laws do not apply to me." A few quiet chuckles came from the back row, quickly silenced by a glance from the bailiff. The judge didn't react to the claim itself. Instead, she moved forward with the process. "Mr. Harper, I am entering a plea of not guilty on your behalf." "I do not accept that," Daniel shot back immediately. "Noted," the judge replied. "We will proceed." But Daniel wasn't finished. "You are violating my rights," he said, his voice rising. "I do not consent to any of this. I do not consent to being represented. I do not consent to your authority." The judge nodded slightly. "You've made your position clear." Then she added firmly, "And the court has made its ruling." For a moment, Daniel seemed thrown off, just slightly. It wasn't the reaction he expected. He flipped through his papers quickly, scanning lines as if searching for the next line in a script. "I demand proof of jurisdiction," he said. "Produce the contract that binds me to this court." The judge leaned forward. "Jurisdiction is established by law, not by personal agreement." Daniel shook his head, almost laughing. "That's not how it works. I've studied this. You cannot proceed without my consent." There was silence for a beat. Then the judge spoke, clear, direct, and final. "Mr. Harper, consent is not required for this court to exercise jurisdiction in a criminal matter." The words landed heavier than anything said so far. For the first time, Daniel's confidence flickered, just for a second, but he pushed forward. "I do not consent," he repeated, louder now. The judge turned slightly toward the bailiff. "Mr. Harper is disrupting court proceedings." Daniel raised a hand quickly. "I am not disrupting. I am asserting my rights." "You are refusing to comply with lawful court instructions," the judge replied. "I do not recognize your authority." And that was the moment. The exact moment everything shifted. The judge's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Bailiff, 2 steps. That's all it took. The bailiff moved beside Daniel, calm and controlled. Sir, place your hands behind your back. Daniel froze. What? No, I do not consent to this. The bailiff didn't argue. Hands behind your back, sir. I do not consent, Daniel repeated louder, now with a trace of urgency. The courtroom was completely silent. Even the smallest sounds, the rustling papers, shifting chairs, had stopped. This wasn't theory anymore. This wasn't a script. This was real. Sir, the bailiff said, firmer now. Comply or you will be restrained. Daniel stepped back slightly. You can't do this. This is unlawful. I do not consent. The judge's voice came again, steady and unshaken. Mr. Harper, you are being detained for contempt of court. The words hit harder than any argument. Contempt. Detained. Real consequences. Daniel's eyes moved quickly, from the judge to the bailiff to the door, as if searching for something that wasn't there. Control. I do not consent, he said again, but now it sounded different, not confident, not certain, just repeated. The bailiff gently but firmly took his arm. Hands behind your back. There was a brief moment of resistance, just hesitation more than struggle. Then the click, sharp, final. Handcuffs. The sound echoed louder than expected. Daniel's papers slid off the podium, scattering across the floor. Pages filled with arguments, notes, phrases he thought would protect him. No one picked them up because they didn't matter anymore. As he was guided toward the side door, he kept speaking, almost automatically. This is unlawful. I do not consent. You're violating my rights. But the words had lost their weight. They no longer controlled the situation. They couldn't. Because reality doesn't negotiate with belief. The door opened, then closed, and just like that, he was gone. The courtroom remained quiet for a moment longer. Then the judge looked down at the file again. Next case. And the system moved on, like it always does. Outside, in a holding cell just down the hall, Daniel sat on a bench, staring at his hands. The same hands that had held those papers. The same hands now marked by faint red lines where the cuffs had been. For the first time that day, there was no audience, no judge, no courtroom, no one to argue with, just silence and something else. Reality. Because belief, no matter how strongly held, doesn't override the law. And saying, I do not consent, doesn't stop consequences from arriving. It just delays the moment you realize they were always coming.